when I go through the story and I, think about the young John, yourself, with your father.
Right.
Is it true that, the first time you met your father, you were 8 years old?
No, that's not true.
Because he was gone for a few years? What was it?
Well, always met my father. I used to visit my father.
Meaning he was in jail. Did you guys go visit or no?
My first birthday, my father was doing a year in Riverhead. He was doing a larceny bid in, I think, auto theft bid, rather, in Riverhead. He did a year there. That was my first birthday. He was there. And then he came home for a brief amount of time. And then he went back in. In 1968, he got the hijacking charge. So I was 4 years old at that time. He went in and he came out in 72. So he did 4 years on the hijacking charge. So if you want to, he came home in March of 72. So that would make me just 8 years old. So most of my life, young life, my father was in prison. But like I said, I mean, I visited him regularly. My mother was dutiful. She was loyal. She always took us. She would pile us in the car. And my grandfather, one of my uncles, would drive us to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We'd pile in the visiting room. In fact, I've got, I still have several in my book, Shadow of My Father. I have a picture of me as a little buck in the visiting room with my father. He's in the
How often would you guys go visit?
Well, again, it's not like today. It's easy. It was far more accessible today. But back then, my mother would probably go every 2 or 3 months. We would go. She'd break the kids up. It was hard to take us all. So maybe I seen my father in the course of a year. I'd see him 3 times, maybe, possibly 4.
In your first 8 years, how long was he out?
First 8 years, we got 1, 4, 5. I want to say in and out. I would say by the time I was, I say this, by the time I was 13, he had 9 in. So first 8 years, let's say 5. But by the time I was 13, he had 9 in.
So 13 years old, he's only been with you for 4 years in the house, where you come home, you see him.
Yeah.
Got it. And then at this point, you still don't know what he's doing. You don't know what business he's in.
He's different. He's different. He's absolutely different. Look, I mean, he walked different. He talked different. And it was remarkable. Because I used to, as I got older, I would watch my father and I would be in amazement. Like we would, we'll discuss that maybe a little bit later about the evolution of what he became. But at that point in my life, you look at him and you say to yourself, I know this much. I know I played Little League Baseball and I know my coach. I know my kids on the block, their fathers, who's a blue-collar worker, hard-working individual, whatever have you. I know how they've all comported themselves. Everybody spoke Brooklynese. We all similarly spoke. But John was different. The first day he came home, when he came home from Lewisburg, he was different. Brown Lincoln Continental. That's what he came home. He had a chocolate brown Lincoln Continental. The car pulls down the block, pulls in his driveway. We live in a row of row houses. Second off the corner, little green awning, simple house. And he gets out of the car. He's got a light brown mock neck, chocolate brown suit with a matching overcoat. And he gets out of the car with jet black hair. And I've described it in my book. It was Tony Curtis with muscles. He came out of the car and he looked and he just surveyed the area. He got out of the car. He shot his jacket. He fixed it, looked down. He saw him. I waved to him. And he just walked like he owned the place. Like he never saw the house before because we moved there from South Brooklyn when he went to prison. So he found the house okay. He drove himself home, found it, parked his car, saw me, walked up the stairs like he always was there, like he owned the place, literally, so to speak. So in watching him and watching his mannerisms, watching how my mother deferred to him, look, he was different than my friends' fathers, that's for sure. That much I did know. So that's the foundation. And then as you get a little older, also, Pat, you become more perceptive, okay? People gossip and say, your father's in prison. No, my father's not in prison. My father's at a military camp, and he's in a construction aspect. They have to build things there. Oh, yeah? Okay. And then you evolve more and more. You become more and more.
When was the first time you realized he is really in prison? How old were you?
I would probably say maybe it struck me as a little odd, when I was 8 years old.
At 8 years old, got it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Santa Claus element, right?
7 years old, and 8. I turned 8 in February of 72. He came home in March. Right around that time, you understand because he's coming home, he's coming home, he's coming home. And you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. You know, listen, we don't give kids credit. The kids today are a lot smarter than we were because they're stimulated by computers and everything else and far more in interaction in that respect. But they don't have the personal skills that we have in personal interaction. But they're literate. They read so much. They can hit a button, true or not true, and they can find almost anything they want to find. But you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together and you come to an understanding that everything's a little different here.
That makes sense because even back, I mean, there's not internet. It's not like you're on TikTok. John Gotti, you know, is back in, you don't have access to that, right? You're living in this community.
No, that was, you either in the newspapers or it's like word of mouth. That's it.
Now
Pony Express.
You go to military academy and your is it 79 when you go? I think 79 when you go.
78 to 82 I was there.
Right. So when you go there, what's the story where you're sitting there and there comes a story on TV, you know, John Gotti, and everybody's watching like, wait a minute, what was that story when that happened?
I was in the day room. And we had a TV. The TV was in the day room. So when we had some downtime, we weren't drilling, whatever have you, or playing sports, you go to the day room, watch TV. And I'm watching, and it was like an undercover operation. They're talking about the garment center. And it had a picture of my father with a gray sport jacket on, and he had a bandage on his hand because he was here in Florida and he knocked the biker out at a red light. So I remember that when that happened, he had a chipped tooth in his hand, got infected. So you'll see that surveillance, you'll see him with a gray sport jacket on or a gray silk shirt. And he's talking to, if I remember correctly, he's talking to Alphonse, a guy named Funzy Siska, in front of the Ravenite. And he's got his hand like this and he's talking and you see his hands bandaged up. And that was the same exact time. They showed that picture. And this is, let's say 81. I mean, I could be off slightly on my dates. I'm trying to piece together in my head, 81. And it said, this man, John Gotti, is a captain in so-and-so Gambino crime family. And the garment center is controlled by Tommy Gambino and all these players. And I'm looking. And I see I'm sitting in the back watching the TV. And all of a sudden, I'm like sweating a little bit. Like I'm getting nervous. Like, you know, my sphincters tighten up now. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, shit. I'm getting very uncomfortable. And all of a sudden, in the front row, and they're like talking to each other. And they all turn and they're looking at me now. And he's got the same name as you. I says, yeah, sure does, yeah. The other guy says, another one of the cadets says, oh, I saw him here. Gotti, he was here with you 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it's my father. And all of a sudden, everybody got quiet. You know, everybody got quiet and they're watching the TV. And I'm like, oh, God, please. Like, I'm counting the seconds till this ends. This program's got to end now. Wow. You know, I'm counting the seconds here. And that was really like, now I became educated, okay, so to speak. Now you're educated, okay? That's the point where you become educated.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me and he read the book. And afterwards is like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. When you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at the society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're gonna enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed your order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.